Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome to today's webinar on vital presentation skills for engineers with Roger Granis from our Build Your Career webinar series. My name is Michelle Fawn, and I manage our education and professional certification products and services here at the IEEE Computer Society. Each month, we host webinars on vital business skills that will help you excel at your current job and be helpful throughout your career. Topics covered include communication, interviewing tips, personal branding, and effective writing, to name a few. Before we get started, I would like to address some housekeeping items. The webinar is being recorded. Tomorrow, you will receive an email with both the slides and the recording of today's webinar. You can ask any questions using the Q&A box you see on your screen. Roger will answer as many questions as he can following his presentations. If possible, please reference the slide your question refers to. Successful software developers and engineers are often also great communicators. The Computer Society provides communities, events, and other resources that can help computing professionals improve their soft skills and advance their career. This past year alone, over 18 webinars have published on our career development. Our blog, Tech News, publishes the latest industry trends, skills, and career resource to help you grow in the industry. Furthermore, you can connect and grow with the other computing professionals via our technical communities related to your field of interest, such as technical communities in cloud computing, machine intelligence, high-performance computing, and others. More information will be shared after the webinar. You can also learn more at computer.org. Joining us today is Roger Granis, principal of Granis Group since 2005. Roger understands engineers and has dedicated his career to helping them communicate more effectively. He has also improved business performance at some of the biggest names in business, such as GE, Underwriting Laboratories, Semantics, Pepsi, Royal Banks of Scotland, Foot Locker, and Synchrony. Roger, thank you for presenting today. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Let's give it up for Michelle for putting this together, and along with her colleague, Scott Levine. Thank you both. I know they're working hard behind the scenes to bring you great content to help you become better communicators and succeed in work and in life. So thank you. Just a little more about my personal background, just to help you connect with me. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. You should be seeing a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge there. Maybe many of you have been there. Alcatraz, Fisherman's Wharf, and whatnot. I grew up there in the suburbs. And my father was just like you, an electrical engineer. He was a lifetime member of IEEE. Once a month, he would say, won't be home for dinner. I'm going to the IEEE meeting. Well, my dad liked taking pictures. And if you have ever visited San Francisco or California, if you were pulling the car over to take pictures, you'd probably take pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge, Alcatraz, the ocean, maybe wine country, maybe the beautiful mountains up in the Sierras like Yosemite and Half Dome up there. Well, my dad was an inventor. He made devices that brought electricity from the power plant along the wires to people's houses. So when my dad, the engineer, pulled over the car, he would take pictures of telephone poles, because that's what he invented. So one of the keys to communicating well is to always think about the other person. What do they see through their telephoto lens? What is their focus? And that's one of the keys to presenting, being persuasive, being influential, selling your ideas and yourself. Think about the other person's point of view and what's important to them. So with that, we'll set the stage. I'd like to learn a little bit about you. I've just put up a poll. Who are you? Like the Who song. No, we're going to ask you, who are you? Just take a quick couple seconds, if you would, click in the one of the boxes there. Student, PhD candidate, maybe you're an entry-level engineer, team lead, supervisor, manager, maybe you're a director or in the C-suite, maybe you're retired or other. If you would take a quick second, and we're not just doing the poll to gather this information, we're also demonstrating one of the keys to engaging with people during virtual presentations. And one of those skills, techniques, tools is to do polls. So if you would take a second to click your circle there, which one is appropriate for you. That would be awesome. Michelle, how much time do we need to give? Let me know when we should go to the results.
We can give a few more seconds.
Okay, great.
And then I can click it if you like.
Yeah, why don't you take control of that? You've got a better feel for. Okay, great. All right, so here we go. Thank you, Michelle. So we've got a fairly even distribution. Students, almost 13%, PhD candidates, team leads also up there in the 10% level, managers, and a lot of others. So great, fairly even distribution, and that gives us a sense of who you are and how to direct our content. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next poll. Which virtual presentation situation do you want to apply today's lessons to? Which virtual presentation situation do you want to apply today's lessons to? Where do you want to take the lessons and apply them? Of course, with any webinar, any training, one of the things I want to do, and certainly if you are leading a webinar, you want to make sure people are using the information you provide, whether it's to learn something new or to persuade them to do something differently, to teach a skill. You want them to put your ideas to work. So see through the lens and apply the information directly. So by doing this survey, it'll help me hone my talk to plant the information appropriately for you. So which situation do you want to apply today's lessons to? Is it delivering presentations to large groups? So larger group, say greater than 8 people. Delivering presentations to small groups, less than 8 people, so a small conference room, virtual or otherwise setting. Attending interactive meetings with multiple people, so that's more of a dialogue. You're just kicking around the ideas. It's not a one-way presentation. Or is it attending interactive meetings with one person? That would be like a one-on-one meeting where you're not necessarily presenting, but you're having a back and forth dialogue. So, all right, okay, hopefully you've had a little bit of time to think about that. I'm going to click advance, see what the results are. All right, so clearly the majority is delivering presentations to large groups. Good news, we're really designed to do that. And the second, well, actually, it was kind of a tie for second. So we're going to focus mainly on delivering to large groups. Certainly the lessons will apply to presenting to small groups. And then hopefully, in terms of interactive meetings with multiple people, the lessons here will help you do that better. We also have a couple of other presentations we've done. I'll refer to those later, but those will help you. Those are designed to help you in small group settings, whether it's one-on-one or multiple people. Again, I'll let you know the names of those webinars that the Computer Society has made available. So I ended up, started out in theater and ended up, that did not go over well with my engineer parents. So, hey, you need a real job. So I went into sales and I worked for Adam Osborne. He invented the first portable computer in the early 80s. They sold computer books. Then I went to work for Gartner, was there for 17 years, was in sales, ran sales training, and then hosted the podcast, really launched the media business there. So again, as Michelle said, I love helping engineers communicate better. So with that said, let's jump right into it. Here we go. There are the polls. Okay, so we're talking about virtual presentations. Super important. We know that. We've got the pandemic, which has shifted 100% of things to virtual, and virtual moving forward, even as the pandemic clears, will play a much bigger role in our lives. Today, we're going to talk about how to be more effective presenting in the virtual environment. We'll talk about content. Why getting your content right is one of the foundations, the key to presenting well virtually. We'll look at the technology that's available and how to use it, and then some techniques to emphasize when you're presenting virtually. Then we'll have some time for Q&A. By the way, if something comes up pressing, please type your question in the Q&A box at the bottom. I will be keeping an eye on that. All right, let's go to content. Here's the deal. We're all super busy with the advent of the handheld devices, email, chat, telephones, people walking by our offices. We are ultimately distracted. We are distracted people. In fact, my son is on a bike ride right now across the U.S. raising money to end distracted driving. So getting people's attention is absolutely critical, especially in a virtual world where people can be multitasking and not paying attention. We don't want to be boring, and we want to focus on getting results. We don't want to just go out and give information. We want to have clear objectives and get results. So as you're planning your presentation, we want to think about objectives, the audience, and we'll get into that in a second. So we want to not think about us. We want to think about my dad. What is he looking through the lens? What is your audience looking at through their camera of life? So we want to analyze the audience. What do you want them to know, do, and feel after listening to you present? Have specific objectives, and that will help shape your message. Remember, we've got to hold their attention, not be boring. So it's really important to have clear objectives. In terms of knowledge, what do we want them to know? Here's an example. This is my analysis of you, this audience today. So what do I want you to know? Well, I want you to know it's super important to analyze your audience and how to do that. I want to help you make your message memorable, and underlying all that is the importance of having variety. One of the reasons we lose people's attention is because we're monotonous. We maybe speak in a monotone, and we're only presenting one kind of information. Maybe it's just data. Data, 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 data. I went to a conference once, 3 days. All they presented was data, and it was awful. You need to have variety. All right, what would I like you to do as a result of this workshop this morning? Well, to help you set up your virtual studio so that you look sharp when you're on camera, utilize the virtual tools that are available, engage your audience, and I'd love to have you implement at least one new idea. Take an idea, put it to work today. I'll be presenting lots of ideas. I will feel that my job is done if you at least take one of them and put it to work. If you go out with, I'm going to do 10 new things, you'll have less, you'll be more likely to not implement anything. Just pick one, maybe two, that you can put to work today. How would I like you to feel? Well, more confident about presenting virtually. I want you to feel energized. Hey, I got to pick up my energy when I'm presenting virtually. And I want you to feel motivated to put these things, one or two of them, into practice. All right, let's look at number 2. We're going to talk about 7 keys here in terms of content. Crafting your message. Here's what I see engineers do a lot. You've got lots and lots of knowledge. You are smart people. You are thorough. You get the job done. Love it. And when it comes to presenting, we have a tendency to pull out every single idea we've ever had on whatever the topic is and do this huge information dump. That is a way to put your audience to sleep and leave them confused. Now, there may be audiences where you're going over specs for a project or whatnot, where all that detail is appropriate. Absolutely. You don't want to gloss over that. But if you're presenting to, say, the executives about getting them to fund a budget or somebody to hire you, you don't want to just do the rat-a-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. You want to pick something, key messages, so that you're on target. How do you do that? You're going to go through your vast knowledge base, and you're going to pull out the key arguments that link to the needs of the audience and your objectives for that particular meeting, presentation, even in a one-on-one conversation. You've got to synthesize your content. I love this quote by Alfred Hitchcock, the famous movie director. He said, "Drama is life with the dull bits cut out." One of the keys to presenting is to pull boring content, unessential content out. That lets the remaining content shine. It's like going to an art museum. If art museums have one picture on one wall sometimes, and wow, there's that calm, that white space around them that lets that painting really shine. That's the concept you want to do when identifying those key points. Give them a lot of light and white space so that they stand out and they're not cluttered by too much extraneous information. Here's another quote, kind of saying the same thing, by the author of The Little Prince. Perfection is achieved not when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing left to take away. So when you put in the time to present well, think about, gee, are there things that I can take out that will make the remaining content shine even better? All right, number 3 of 7, you want to have a cohesive structure. Here's a structure that I use a lot when presenting ideas, when I'm trying to sell a concept, get some budget approval. Problem, solution, value. State the problem or the situation. Describe your proposed solution using 3 supporting points. And then what's the value? What's the payoff? So problem, then the solution. Again, point 1, point 2, point 3. And here's the value payoff. Now, we've got another webinar that goes into this in more depth. I'll mention the name of that in a few minutes. Okay, how to make your message stick. Here are a couple of highlights from that other webinar in terms of content, making your message stick. Have a memorable concept. For example, the D-Day invasion at the end of World War II was called Operation Overlord. So you could give your project a name. You could give it a catchy phrase like drive sober or get pulled over. Or give it 3 key points that rhyme or are the same, like 30, 30, 30. When Gartner, the company I work for, went public and our CEO was going around getting investors to invest in us, he said, here's our plan for tripling our revenues, 30, 30, 30. It was 3, which is powerful, and it was the same word repeated. Here's another way of using 3 key points. This example is starting with the same letter. Recruit, retain, record. So when I was a Boy Scout leader, that was our plan for the year. Here's our goals. Recruit, retain, record. And then I provided all the details. Hope is on the way. Another phrase. So again, for important things, important projects, give it a title, a catchy phrase that sticks to people's heads, and also it's repeatable, something they could repeat to other people up the line, which will help you persuade and get approval. So in the other webinar, we talk about, I think, 10 or 12 keys to structuring your content to make it stick. Here are 3 that are super effective. 1, use 3s, like we did in the prior slide, 30, 30, 30, recruit, retain, record. There's something powerful about presenting ideas in 3. Okay, there we go. Number 2, tell stories. Now, I know engineers, we love the data and the specs and all the details. If you break up that content with a story or 2 about how others have implemented this idea, or maybe customers have had success in this way, put in a story. Once upon a time, there was an airport that needed a new runway. Some of the challenges were this. We came in with a new runway design. We were selected as the vendor because of ABC. So put it in the form of a story. Stories are the oldest form of human communication. More parts of the brain are engaged when people are listening to stories. So tell a story. And then finally, as the great speaker, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did, some of you may not be familiar, but in the 1960s, here in the U.S., he was trying to end racial strife. And so he had a speech called, I Have a Dream. So what he was doing was painting a picture of a brighter tomorrow. I have a dream that one day this. I have a dream that one day that. So in your presentation, you could say, if you hire me a year from now, this is what life will look like here in your organization. Or if you choose us as the civil engineer team, a year from now, that new roundabout will look like this. Can't you imagine the traffic jams are over, drivers are happier, they're safer, and so forth. So the power of 3, tell stories and show what life's going to be like as a result of implementing your idea. In terms of visuals, we want to use pictures, not words. So here's an example of a client that I worked with. The engineer had a paragraph essentially saying, if these dangerous gases get escape in the okay, talk to the virtual. Oh, some quick question here. I'll take a look at that in a second. All right, so slides, better to have pictures instead of words. So again, this engineer I was working with had a paragraph describing what would happen if gases leaked in this plant, and he said the plant will explode. Not good. So I said, well, why don't you just put a picture of the plant exploding? He said, oh, there's a good idea. All right, another example. I see a lot of slides like this, lots and lots of information. What we want to do is move the words, that's really your script. Get those out of the slide, put them into, if you're using PowerPoint, into the notes section. Those are for your reference. And then just put up some bullets with a picture, or just the picture or the diagram into the visual. I mentioned earlier, have variety. I see, again, a lot of people, data. Well, data's fine, just mix it up a little bit. The key to holding people's attention, especially on a virtual presentation, is to have variety. Do something different. So tell stories, provide a case study, maybe a testimonial from a satisfied client, or maybe a testimonial from one of you if you're interviewing for a job. 2 or 3 quotes from other people that supervised you in the past. Show a chart or a diagram, just a picture. Maybe just one word. I think I've got a couple slides ahead that are just large fonts words. Maybe show a cartoon, get some humor in there. So again, variety. Think about how to move away from using the same type of content over and over. And then finally, in terms of content, remember, well, maybe you haven't watched this video webinar, but there are 4 distinct communication styles. And again, there's a webinar on this. If you want to read about DISC, D-I-S-C, you'll see the 4 words clockwise moving from starting in the upper left corner. Dominance, influence, conscientiousness, steadiness. DISC. That's a communication tool. You can Google free DISC survey, DISC, take the test yourself and read a little bit more about it, or watch the webinar. So here's the bottom line on this. Again, we're looking for variety and to engage 4 different types of people in your audience. 1, the dominance people are quick, they're fast, they can feel kind of rude sometimes. They want you to get to the bottom line. So give them bullet points and the bottom line. The influencers like fun and possibilities. So you have to liven up your delivery. Maybe put some fun pictures. Talk about how fun that new roundabout is going to be. Conscientious folks, we do find a lot of engineers there. Not all. Love the facts and details. They want to see you've done your homework. So lots and lots of facts and details. And then finally, the steadiness folks are all about interpersonal connections, loving people, being kind and gentle. They care about relationships and people. So let's say that roundabout we're proposing, how would we present it in the 4 different ways? Well, for the dominance folks, it's going to cost $2 million and be done in 6 months. Conscientiousness folks, you're going to provide lots and lots of detail about the kind of concrete you're going to use, the background of the subcontractors, lots and lots of details. The steadiness folks, you're going to talk about how peaceful life will be when people are just driving smoothly around that roundabout in that part of town. Influencers, you're going to talk about how great it's going to look, the plants, the statue that's going to be in middle, the opening parade. See the difference? So if you're presenting to a group, you've got to touch all 4 styles. All right, let me just see here. Okay, DISC presentations. Great, I'm going to answer that. So question regarding the DISC presentations. Do you recommend having a mix of these 4 styles in one presentation? Absolutely yes. Should you always stick to one style based on the majority of the audience? Couple of great question, and thank you, Andre. So a couple of points on that, 3 points. Number one, yes, prepare content for all 4 styles. Number 2, if there's a key decision maker in the room, or you think a majority of the people fall into a particular style, spend about 60% of your time addressing that particular style, and then do a sweep of the other 3. And then finally, the third point is to pay a special attention to the diagonal opposite communication style as yours. We tend to think here's what we typically do. We present content to people in our style because we think everyone wants to be communicated with like us. And so our blind spot, if you will, is the person in that diagonal opposite corner. They have the least in common with us in terms of how we like to communicate. So always prepare some content for that diagonal opposite that will help you expand your skill set and not turn people off. Great question. Do styles vary with audience type? Yes. In general, yes. And again, I urge you to watch the webinar where we go into this in more depth, but yes, styles vary with audience type in general. So if I'm talking to a team of salespeople, I'm going to be more rah-rah and fun and so on and so forth. If I'm talking to a team of executives, I'm going to get right to the point more often. If I'm talking to engineers, I'm going to be much more detail-oriented. So again, that's a quick answer. Hopefully that gives you some insights. On the graphs, okay, if we add a few numbers on the slide, that will be the main takeaways from the slide. Absolutely, yes. Thank you, Andre. In addition to the spoken words, yeah. So the answer is yes. And also, if you've got, because I know we've got lots to cover in a short time, I'm going to give you my email address at the end. Happy to answer questions more in depth if this was not deep enough. Simon, could you talk through the virtual studio? Yes, I've got a whole section on that. We'll cover that in a second. Wendy, I get bored when people talk slowly. Yes, so again, we want to have variety, not just in our content, but in our delivery. One of the bottom line keys to virtual presentations is to just pick up your energy. You got to be you, the best you, but a little bit better and a little bit brighter. So I worked in radio for a while as a disc jockey, and back then we had records, vinyl. We played the records a little bit faster. So a 45 record, which normally is played at 45 revolutions per minute, we play them at 47. Just a little bit faster. It makes it just a little bit more cheery. Okay, Paul, how do I identify our diagonal opposite? Would it be the ones that tend to sort of persecute us? Is that our twins? Yeah, so I think this is what you mean, Paul. Great question. If you find yourself having conflict with people at work or at home, one of the reasons could be and is probably likely that they're the diagonal opposite. And I've done a lot of analysis on this. People that annoy me tend to be, I'm an influencer, and the folks that want all the details, bottom line, drive me nuts, and vice versa. So if somebody's, as we say in the US, driving you nuts or you're having conflict with, they're probably the diagonal opposite of you. All right. How to apply the 4 types of communications in a lecture? Address all 4 styles. Again, I think I answered that. So as you're preparing the talk, get some content for all 4 styles. That will help you have a much more engaging presentation. Okay, and I'll take one more, then we'll continue. How can I identify the style of the audience? You could do some research in advance. You could, if you don't know the audience, the best thing to do is maybe talk to the person who scheduled the meeting and just, hey, tell me the makeup of this meeting. What do they need to, again, go back to the objectives. What do they need to know, do, and feel as a result of me presenting? What do they already know about this topic? What are the things they don't know? So that's not necessarily communication style that will help you prepare for the meeting, but it will also perhaps give you some insight as to the communication personality of the group. All right, I'm going to continue on and save some of the remaining questions for a little bit later. All right. Okay. Yes. Oh, here are the other webinars. So you can email Michelle or Scott about how to find these, but we have 2 webinars that I did for them that go into both of these things more in depth. One is called Present with Impact, and the other is the 4 languages of influence. So the 4 languages of influence goes much more in depth into DISC. All right, hopefully those are helpful. Okay, we've been answering questions. All right, woo! Let's take a quick breath. What is one new idea so far you would like to implement? Is there anything? Just think about that for yourself. Again, my goal, if you remember the objectives, implement one idea, just one simple idea. Maybe it's thinking about that polar or diagonal opposite style. For me, being a little more detail oriented. Maybe if you're a dominance person, it's, man, maybe I should just soften up a little bit, not be so direct and leaving the audience feel that I'm harsh. Maybe it's changing your visuals. So you've got some ideas. Think about which one are you going to implement. We're going to move on now to technology. And I know somebody asked about lighting and studio. That's going to come up in a little bit. All right. Know your platform, whatever it is. So the IEEE Computer Society uses On24. I'm very used to Zoom. So what Michelle and Scott are true professionals. So we had a rehearsal 2 days ago where it just gave me a chance to familiarize myself again with this specific platform. And we got on a half an hour early to make sure I knew how to advance the slides. So know your platform. Again, we want to provide variety. So you want to know what capabilities there are, what tools you have to interact and engage with folks. You want to practice and test the audio and video in advance. All right, use the interaction tools. I'm using the Q&A here a little bit, trying to break up the content with some questions and answers. So the chat function, breakout rooms, we did polling. We did a couple of those early on. There are some platforms where you can draw and highlight, just anything to change it up, keep the audience engaged. You could put up a quiz, do a raise hands. I know Zoom's got a raise hands function. Again, asking people a question, getting them to mentally participate. Maybe you want to do a screen share where you invite somebody else to come on for a little bit. So again, use those interaction tools. All right, this gets into the studio setup. Thank you for asking that question. So you want to look into the camera. We recommend having the camera at eye level. Now, of course, I'm glancing down to look at the slides on occasion. Hopefully, I'm following my own advice here and looking into the camera. But I'm going to just look at the slides myself here on the screen. So that is one of, so the setup I'm using right now is the one on the right. I've got the orange crate on the bottom. I've got my laptop set up, and actually behind that is a monitor. And so the setup looks more like on the left, but it's propped up on the crate on the right. And I'm standing up. I think you give more energy, you've got more energy, you're more engaging if you're standing up when you deliver a really important presentation. One-on-one, sitting down, I think puts the other person at ease a little bit more. So let me explain a couple things on the left. So you see that thing, in the black thing in the middle of the screen. You're saying, what is that? Well, that's actually my Logitech camera, and it's attached to a clear piece of plexiglass, so I can raise and lower the camera and actually bring it down on the screen, so I'm not looking into a camera at the top of the screen. And that, by the way, that's called a plexicam, and I think they're under $100. You don't have to invest in this. I do this for a living, so I invest. I have to. But the tips are this. Well, let's actually got some pictures of the setup. So here are the tips. Number one, use proper framing. So the upper left two, a little bit too close. The one in the upper right, we see this a lot where you've got the laptop, let's say on your lap, cameras looking up at your face. we recommend not doing that and just raising the camera. Also, don't be too far away. Be just in the middle. So here, shoulders, little gap between the top of the head and the top of the frame. And that's what we recommend. Use proper lighting. I think this was the question. So if you've got too much light, so I'm looking, a window is like, I'm touching the window right now. So what I've got is a pair of blackout curtains. I'm using a yardstick here, as we call it in the States. And I just can open and close those as needed. You see it went a little bit dark. Do a little bit brighter. There we go. If in the middle picture on the screen, I've turned off the lights that light up the bookshelf because it makes me a silhouette. The picture on the right of me on the screen is pretty much the setup we have now, although I feel I'm a little bit darker here, but not too bad. So what we want to go for is the view on the right. More light in I've got a picture here. You want to get the lights in front of you off to the side, pointing at you from the angle. So the picture on the screen would be an overhead view of where the lights would be looking down at the laptop. Have an appropriate background. Take a look at these, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Let me know by putting your let's put your answer into the Q&A, put it into the question, so you're not asking me a question. Let me know which background you like. Is it A, is it H, is it I? So type your answers in the chat there, and then we'll have some discussion on that. I'm going to review the other questions. Okay, put your answers in there. While you're doing that, I'm going to look at the other questions, and I think we're on track here to answer those. Oh, thank you. So sorry. Now that the answers are coming in, I'm going to go back to that. So we've got F, G, E. See a lot of G's, D. Let's see what F and G offer. F and G. So F has got a background, lots of stuff in the background. People like that. And G has absolutely nothing. Okay, so those are kind of different backgrounds. G, 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 G. Everybody's liking G. Lots of G's. So what I'm hearing is G is the top vote getter because it's absolutely neutral. There's nothing there. So no distractions. No distractions. So there you go. Let's see what might be coming number 2. D, I, A, C, D. Yeah, D is a virtual background, so a fake background. G, 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 B, G. The others are all over the board. I don't see anyone jumping out. So what I'm hearing is for background, less is more. I think E's got very little. H has got very little, but it's a bedroom and he's way too low in the frame. So bottom line, less is more. Don't have a lot of distraction in the background. All right, I'm going to pause and look at some of these questions. Okay, here's a funny one. Good, I love this. Okay, this is good. Thank you, Paul. A little humor. Let's bring some humor in here. If you're good looking like Barack Obama, you could use any of these backgrounds. Okay, good. E is cool too. E. Okay, yeah. My personal preference would probably be E or B. I find F has got a lot, like it looks pretty, what we would say, busy. I find it a little bit distracting. Okay. Okay, nothing. Okay, I'm going to go to the other questions. Okay, here we go. Okay, we're going back to some prior questions. What if the diagonal opposites are just an assumption of what percentage we can, measure the set assumption of the diagonal opposite? Thanks for the good presentation. Right. I'm going to interpret the question. We don't want to make assumptions. We do want to spend time with the other person. The key is to watch them and mirror, meaning communicate like they do. We want to match their communication style. People like people who are like them. So one of the ways we can do that is to talk about things in common and find things in common and speak like they speak. So when in doubt, just match their style. Okay. Okay, great question. In terms of in terms of the objectives of a meeting, I don't understand what Roger means by feeling. It's more the emotion. Do we want them to feel confident? Let's say you're teaching a new skill. We want them to feel confident that they have mastered the new skill. Let's say it's a job interview. We want the interviewer to feel confident in hiring me, to eliminate doubts. So the other two, knowledge and actions, are more logic-based. This is just more, what feeling do we want to create? We want them to like us. We want them to get excited about the proposal that we have. So just the emotional attraction to what we're proposing. Okay, question, and then we'll move on. Will dominance, so that's the dominant style, will dominant style turn off some of the audience? Yes. Dominance people like to get things done quickly so they get to the bottom line. They're not thinking about people's, okay, I'm oversimplifying, tend to not worry about people's feelings. And yes, there will be people in the audience that feel like they're too blunt, too direct. They don't care about me as a person. So that's the net on that. Okay, one last question, and then we'll move on. How many images should we have on a slide? One. Better to have one idea per slide, one picture per slide, and if you need words, here's the rule. It's called the 5x5 principle. No more than 5 bullets and no more than 5 words next to each bullet. I think that's even too much. But bottom line, one idea per slide, one picture, and a minimal number of bullet points. You're not giving the script on the slide. You're giving just some talking points. If you need to provide details, you can give the audience a slide deck with all the details in the the note section, or you could give them a handout or email that to them with all the details. So the slides are not your script. They're to help you stay on track and to give a visual, add some visual variety for the audience. All right, we're going to move forward. Let me show you this slide. Okay, so G, where the woman has nothing in the background. One of the dangers of being in a room where there's no furniture, like the picture on the left, where it's wood floor, just a little table, and then the walls, you will be speaking in an echo chamber. Audio is much more important on a virtual presentation than we give it credit for. So we're going to talk about microphones in a second. So you want to avoid echo. So put up some fabric. Hang it. If it's a wooden floor, put a couple blankets down. Bring in a couch, something to absorb the sound. You don't want to do an echo. Microphone. So I have the choice of using the microphone that's on the camera that I showed, or one that's closer to me. I chose to bring the closer one. It sounds a lot better. I've watched my playbacks on presentations when I was not using this, and it's just not quite as easy to hear. You don't have to invest in this. If you've got earbuds or the old-fashioned wired kind of headphones, earphones, I'd recommend using those. You just sound a lot better. Okay, that ends section 2. we're right on track, about 15 minutes more. What's one thing you can improve relative to the technology? Something to, again, take a minute to think about that. So from a virtual presenting standpoint, I'm not just doing this for fun. I'm demonstrating one technique for how to get the audience to go into their heads for a second and think about how to apply. So I've changed the dynamic from me just delivering information to having you think. Keeps you engaged, and it provides variety. So maybe you want to change the lighting at your home, maybe change the camera angle, improve the audio. Thank you for all the questions. I've got a couple more coming in this. Okay, good. Okay, Roger, your lighting is very even. Do you use any uplifting to reduce shadowing or key lighting to achieve the optimal lighting? If so, can you comment on positioning, including angle distance? Okay, so yes. So I've spent a lot of time on this. So essentially, if I have, let me show you what it looks like. Too far. If I turn the bookshelf light on, I become a shadow. That's right, I showed a picture of this earlier. I become a shadow, and it doesn't look good. So I have two uplights, other side of the room. They're actually pointing at the ceiling. You don't need these. I do this because I've got multiple cameras. I've got to give keynotes from this room. For me, though, let's keep it simple. I have two lights on the wall, right up this way, and I have adjustable lighting from the sun. So you'll see how it's all changing. So if you don't have a window in front of you, I would bring in some simple spotlights and experiment. See what they look like pointed at from an angle at your face. And maybe one you want to turn and face the wall so you're getting some, bounce back light to give you a little depth. But experiment. Options, curtains, and a couple of spotlights in front of you at an angle, pointed up, down, sideways, and you can experiment with that. So I'm even using a little desk lamp pointed at the, if I pull it, it's going to fall down. I've got a little, well, I can probably pull this one in. I've got a little desk lamp that I have swiveled. It's now pointing to the bookcase. So it's some light, but not as bright as the big fluorescent one, or the, not fluorescent, it's, what are they called? LED. Is blurred background a good thing? It's funny you mentioned that. I'm seeing that come into style, and I think it is, it's not a bad thing. You want the focus to be on you. And if the background's distracting, it will not make you pop. So I don't think a blurred background is a bad thing. I cannot make out the book titles behind you, so that's probably good. Yep. Yeah, okay, these are, okay, great, here we go. All right, let's move now to our final segment on technique. So virtual delivery skills. Now, again, I want to get you involved into the conversation and build on knowledge that you already have. And so the question is, if you could put into the question box, what is one virtual presentation technique you have seen work well? Maybe you've delivered it yourself. Maybe you've seen somebody really good at holding an audience's attention, or using the interactive tools. Okay, thank you, Bing Bing. Likes the yardstick. Okay, it's old-fashioned. That's what we call it here in the States. I don't know what they call it in Europe. Is it a meter stick? Okay, great question. Do you need to smile a lot? Well, my answer is you want to have good energy care about the audience, and have really relevant, tight content. If you are a natural, and you want to be authentic, if you are a natural smiler, keep doing that. I don't believe in putting on a fake smile. I think people see that and think, oh, you're not being genuine. So you want to be energetic, engaging. Sure, a smile here or there helps. And I think it's most important to do those other things that I said. Know your audience, really good content, energy, good slides, those kinds of things. All right. Right. Okay, so we're looking now for answers to that question. One virtual presentation technique that works well. Okay, Caroline. Slides. Look away occasionally, pretending to think. Thank you, Donald. Okay, these are some of these. Okay, Menti word cloud. Thank you for mentioning that, Donald. Yes, this is another great virtual tool, an answer to the question, a virtual presentation technique. I thought about using that today, limited time, chose not to. But Menti is an app where you have participants actually type in a response during the presentation, and the answers appear in a cloud. It kind of grows. Really good tool, Menti. Like presentations that have a lot of variety, tell stories. Okay, these are use animation to prevent. Yeah, sometimes I incorporate a video, play a short movie clip. Okay, good. Slides. Let's see what else. Use of a prop, like a pointer stick or eyeglasses. So using props, another great idea. Thank you, Simon. Using variety. Okay, good. And don't be monotone. That makes presentations boring. James asked, any tips for coping with nervousness? The key is two things. Have really good content, and then it just helps. And also just practice. I, believe it or not, hated public speaking. I was so nervous, I dropped out of my first class. I said, I am going to overcome this. So I just kept speaking, and eventually you just get more comfortable with it. In the meantime, have really good content. Okay. Oh, Canva, C-A-N-V-A, is another interactive tool. Great. Thank you all. All right, so let's look at tips from Roger on presenting, actually delivery techniques. I touched on this earlier. Energy, you want to be you, but a little bit more you. So be animated, but stay authentic. Bring a sense of fun to it. The rule of thumb, as we say here in the States, so a good guideline is to have some sort of audience participation every 8 minutes. Something, a poll, a survey, a Menti, type in the chat. How will you apply this? Something every 8 minutes. Engagement tools from the very beginning of the call. As people come into the meeting, call them by name. Hey, welcome. Welcome, Simon, Paul, Bing Bing, James. Hey, thanks for being here. How are things going? Start a dialogue, and that will also help you overcome nervousness because you're developing these relationships with the audience. You can call on people. If you're teaching a skill, say up front, during this program, I'm going to be calling on some of you as we go. That gets them ready. That will help them pay attention. And then you can call people by name. You can ask questions, much like I'm doing. Have them apply the skill. There's the raise hands function. You can do surveys like we've been doing. Do a quiz. Make it a fun quiz. Maybe you ask a question and have 4 answers, A, B, C, D. And the 4th answer could be a funny question, a funny answer, something funny and unexpected. Bring a little humor into it. Have them do an activity. If this were a longer workshop, have you give you a worksheet and have you write down some notes, and then maybe come back to the large group and share those answers. You can also do breakout rooms. Zoom has got the breakout room capability. You want to open strong. Here's a formula that you can use. BOAT, B-O-A-T, background, objective, agenda, timing. I used that technique at the beginning. I had that big word that said virtual. I said virtual is here to stay. And so our objective today is to learn how to present well in that virtual environment. Here's our agenda, and we'll be speaking for about an hour. Okay, remember, deliver high value. Synthesize your content. In the training world, the guideline is for every 1 hour of classroom training, instructors are recommended to spend 100 hours of prep for that 1 hour of delivery. Okay, so put in that preparation time. During the conversation, use turn signals. We just spoke about this. Let's now turn to that. I'm not sure I did that very well. I could have said, well, we just spoke about content. Now let's go to talking about tools that we can use or technology. Vocal variety. I studied acting. You want to warm up the vocal mechanism before your program, your presentation. La 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 la. Oh, yeah. Warm it up. You are an instrument that's performing. And you can provide variety by not being monotonous with your voice. You can change the volume, louder, softer. You can change the pace, faster, slower. I can use inflection, so that's changing the notes of the words that you're speaking. And just the tone can change throughout. So vocal variety, putting in a pause, slowing down to underline key points is another good tip. And ultimately, just be you, but the best you with a little more energy. Here's a quote from Academy Award winner Michael Caine. The rehearsal is the work, and the performance is the relaxation. Put in the work up front, and when it comes time to perform, just relax. You know the content. Use the slides as prompts and bullet points, but relax and connect with the audience. Okay, well, right on time. And we'll go to some questions, and I'm happy to stay a little bit longer. So thank you for having me. There's my email address. If you have further questions that we did not cover today, please send me an email. More than happy to answer those. I do this keynote talk called The Yellow Cake Principle, which is how to influence people, the recipe for influence. I'm putting together a white paper. It'll be ready in a couple weeks. If you would like that, free, no obligation, just shoot me an email. Put in the email IEEECS. There we go. Would also love to connect on LinkedIn, Roger Granis, but I'll put this slide back up. All right, so shall we go to questions? Thank you. Okay, all right, so this is some feedback from me. Thank you. I'm using my hands a lot. You're seeing them too much. Okay, thank you. Great feedback. So my recommendation is if you're going to use your hands, I'd like to see them. I think what I'll change based on the feedback is to use them less. So yeah, I think that's a good observation and good feedback. Thanks. All right. Yeah, know your content by heart. Yeah, just another note on that. I would not memorize word for word everything you're going to say, because then when you're presenting, you're going to be thinking, oh, how did I say that again? I'm going to miss the word. That will, I think, raise the risk of you not being your best. So you know the subject. You've organized it using the slides. So when it comes time to present, just don't memorize. Just speak extemporaneously. All right, great. Question, I want to become a coach at my workplace. for improving my colleagues' speaking and presentations. Advice and first steps on how to approach this. Yes, so I would, well, there are two parts of this. Number one, offer your services, and you can do that through your supervisor. Two, I would put together a program. Maybe you want to offer it free as a, we'll call it a lunch and learn. Come to my webinar on how to present better, and you can give your own tips on how to do that. And then as a follow-up offer, if anyone would like to do some coaching on this, I'd be available to do that in half-hour segments or whatever it is. If you want to do it more formally, again, check with your supervisor and maybe put together a formal presentation with that. You might want to check with the learning and development folks who may be looking for a provider like yourself to provide coaching to employees. Okay, good. Okay, question from Paul. I have failed using a whiteboard. Is that whiteboard you use in your background? I usually open a PowerPoint and try marking up. So, Paul, if the PowerPoint and marking it up works, I would use that. So this is a whiteboard. I do use it, and I've got two cameras. So I actually moved to a separate location in the office so that you would see mostly the whiteboard and a little bit of me. Where it's positioned now, I don't use it there. Again, I've got another system here where I switch cameras and walk over there. But, so I think your PowerPoint solution would be great. If your camera is set up with the whiteboard right here, I don't see any problem with using that. I've had success doing that. Again, I do it because it's variety. Different camera angle, different medium. It helps keep the audience engaged. Are these ideas the same for academics, like a research presentation? So in general, the techniques are the same, yes. For a research presentation in academia, they've got their own set of standards and guidelines. So you don't want to be too different than what they're hoping. At the same time, we don't want to put people to sleep. So I would use the techniques of chunking your ideas, the power of three, using variety, even within the context of the academic guidelines that they give you.
Hi, Roger.
Hi, yep, sorry.
Sorry, we have time for one more question, if that's okay.
That sounds great. Okay, thank you. One person said, thinks I use my hands well, so being animated keeps the audience involved. Related to that is it bad to use your hands because it's distracting? My answer is, be yourself. I happen to use my hands. If you're finding they are becoming a distraction, then I would not go stiff and stop using them, but maybe scale them back, use them a little bit less. And you can have a friend in the audience who can guide you on that. So thank you, Michelle. We're out of time. Again, if you've got further questions anytime now, a week, a month from now, please send me an email. I'd be more than happy to answer that. And thank you again for the opportunity to serve.
Great. Thank you so much, Roger. And thank you everyone for joining. Our next webinar will be held on October 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time with the Distinguished Lecture Series on secure sourcing of COTS products presented by Nancy Mead and Dan Shoemaker. Our next Build Your Career webinar will be held on the 18th of November at 11 a.m. Eastern Time on a persuasive conversation why low impact words do not work, presented by Elsa Velasco-Paul. Registration for these upcoming webinars are now open. Again, we will be sending you a link to these future events along with the slides and recordings of this webinar. Thank you again, everyone, and have a great day.